Hello and welcome. This is Fireworks. It is the belief in Kogi State that the demise of late Abubakar Audu, APC governorship candidate, left a void in the politics of Kogi State at the verge of victory during the 2015 governorship election. And some Kogi indigents have taken it upon themselves to fill that void. Since 2015, have they succeeded? Is power truly in the wrong hands? Or the political drama playing out in Kogi State has been grossly misunderstood? Welcome to your preferred Hard Talk interview program on TVC. I am Bukola Samuel-Wemimo. Let's take a moment. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. Today, my guest is the ADC senatorial candidate for Kogi East in the just concluded Presidential and National Assembly election in the person of Dr. Victor Adoji. Thank you for being on Fireworks, sir.
Welcome, Bukola.
So let me start from the very beginning, where I took off from at the start of the program. Is it in order to say that Kogi indigents feel that the demise of Abubakar Audu left a void in the politicking of Kogi State, or is it just in the politicking of Igala land, where late Audu hailed from?
Well, it is both yes and no. It left the void in the sense of leadership from a particular section, of the state. And again, gives, as it were, a question mark, or leaves a question mark on the leadership recruitment or development process within Kogi State.
What about Igala land, to be specific?
Well, you can't deny the fact that late Abubakar Audu was an iconic figure in Igala land, had a lot of followership, and had his track record of achievements to support that, that fellowship. Yes, to a large extent, it left a void as well. So
Kogi East feels left out in the scheme of things, as it had representation?
We don't feel left out in terms of participation in the running of the affairs of the state. No, so.
But what about in the delivery of the dividends of democracy to the people of Kogi East?
Well, I think the problem we've always had is with the issue of trying to factorize or personalize delivery of dividends of democracy. It's not about an individual. It's about institutions that should be running. So to a large extent, those who are supposed to represent pockets from the councillorship level to the local government level to the House of Assembly, House of Reps, are doing that bit. But on the comparative scale, you say, oh, we feel left out because people seem to juxtapose what is happening now with what happened before or what ought to happen, and then you can begin to say the void you're alluding to.
It's more like a comparative analysis of what obtained before and what is there now.
Well, that's looking at it historically, what obtained before and what is there now. I would rather look at it as what is there now and what ought to be there. If you look at what is there now and what ought to be there, then you begin to see the huge gap in terms of expectation. Comparing it backwards, we equally leave some gap, but we look at it going forward because nobody lives backwards.
Okay, so what ought to be there when set against a backdrop of what inspired you to, what inspired your foray into politics?
Well, my inspiration to get into politics was first to try and see if I can change the nuances. People talk about changing narratives. Narratives are only changed when the nuances are changed. So it's about going down to the basics and for the first time giving my people the kind of representation that they will need. My main focus or main intention was to open up Kogi East, by reason of some kind of collaboration or partnership with, of course, elements of the state, elements outside the state, and of course with the private sector, which is mostly where I belong. It's about bringing entrepreneurship into politics. Yes, I'm in politics, but I'm not a politician. I'm a professional in politics. So it's about bringing my expertise to see how I can open up Kogi East. That was actually.
Are you saying that the representation of Senator, who is outgoing now, Idoko, in the last 8 years at the Red Chamber has not been qualitative enough, that leaves much to be desired for what you would rather see, as you said, in Kogi East?
There are judgmental indices to determine whether or not a sitting senator or an outgoing senator has performed. I will give an example. I come from a part of the state that is literally economically backward. And the simple reason why we're economically backward is because we are landlocked partially, we're sea-locked, and we're air-locked. So all a sitting senator needed to do was to open up the economy by doing just one of two things, or one of three things. One, build a bridge or cause a bridge to be built across the river from Ida to Aganabode, and then Basa to Lokoja, Ibaji to Anambra. And once you open up the entire, Kogi East, the movement of people and goods will literally open up, in the community. That's one. Secondly, our people pride and boast of ferrying out of that little locality the 4th best grade of cashew anywhere in the world. And each time you see those trucks going out of, Kogi East, you actually see jobs going out. And these products are taken partly to Ghana, from what I'm told, and then moved to Kenya, where they are washed and semi-processed. And you have industries within these two, countries, where you employ about 8,000 people who wash and semi-process them. So when you see these trucks going out, what does that say to you? It's actually employment going out. So what I would have expected a senator to do was, by reason of either policy, moral suasion, or lobbying, cause that these industries are either established within the area where these materials are generated, so that you can have other small or medium-scale industries that can create employment, and you can talk about the trickling effect or the ripple effect or the upstream or downstream effect that can impact the economy almost holistically.
When did you start politics, by the way?
Well, it depends on what your definition of politics. I've been in politics all my life.
Okay.
Politics is about using moral suasion.
But have you held political office prior to your...
I have not held political office.
Contest for the
No, I have not.
Kogi East senatorial seat?
No, I have not.
So why, if you really wanted to make an impact in Kogi East, why not start from, the local government level? Why embark on such an ambitious project as the Red Chamber, which, by measuring the outcome of the result at the last National Assembly election, you came a distant third, thereby your testing the waters for your political weight failed woefully?
Coming to contest at the senatorial level puts it at my level of understanding in terms of, you see, we talk about private incursion into politics, private public sector partnership. We talk about people who you think fall within the same bouquet, of your influence, center of influence. So if you were asking me to start from a level of local government chairman, then what you need to ask is that who are those who participate at that level? Definitely none of my contemporaries participate at that level. And in terms of friendship, alliances or partnerships, most of those people who participate at the level of central elections, even at the governors, as governors, are actually my contemporaries. I'll give you an example. The governor of Borno State was my contemporary in the bank. So also the governor of Akwa Ibom State.
Are you going into politics? Are you politicking because of your contemporaries?
Yeah.
Or are you going into politics because of the people at the grassroots that you talked about that would be economically empowered if they had bridges built across communities in Kogi East?
Politics is about networking, not about networking. If you talk about yourself, and how you can impact those at the grassroots, you can't do it alone. It's about partnership and alliances. Yes, you go into politics because you have the connections, you have the relationships that can bring things to bear. So if you're not connected at a particular level of the economy, then what are you going to bring to bear? And then how do you begin to apply your influence? How do you begin to apply your relationships? So yes, to a large extent, it's about your relationship upstream and how you can impact the downstream, which is what referred to as the grassroots.
If you were at the grassroots, wouldn't you rather be better positioned to advocate for local government autonomy, such that you have more resources to be able to tackle the problems at the grassroots?
Advocating for local government autonomy does not start from the grassroots. We're talking about policy issues. It actually starts from the parliament. So you don't advocate for, you can only advocate, but how do you get it approved? You get it approved if you sit around the table.
But if you were at the grassroots, you feel more closely the challenges at the grassroots than if you were at the Senate. For instance, the people of Kogi East complained about your former senator being disconnected from the people, that he only came home at night and he left again for Abuja in the morning. Well,
everybody who is from my locality knows I'm the most visible face around my area. I'm a grassroots politician in that I'm always at home. So these are people that I live with, these are people that I stay with virtually all the time. I have the opportunity to stay with, so I know their problems like the palm of my hands. So it's about looking at connections. Yes, I am here, yet I am there, and then try to just, the dotted lines, connect the dotted lines so that things can flow easily. So I'm a grassroots politician, but maybe a resident outside the vicinity of the grassroots.
Grassroots politician, but not an astute one if we went by the results of the senatorial election. You came third behind the PDP.
I've told people who try to listen or who know of all that happened in the course of the elections that I was defeated and not defeated. What happened on the 23rd of February, by every definition, was not a free and fair election. We all know what happened, and I've decided to just put that behind me.
Let's talk about how you were able to secure, that's ahead of the primary that got you the ticket of the ADC now. How were you able to secure the endorsement of Kogi East Elders Council as the preferred man for the job of the Kogi East senatorial seat?
You know, it's about opening a continuous and sustainable line of communication. You know, I've been involved in a number of projects, either from the ages or from the platform of interest groups, cultural organizations, elders committee, and what have you. So I have been a constant feature, you know, in the conversations that have to do with evolving, Kogi East. If
it was that easy, why was your endorsement contested by some Kogi indigenes?
You know, politics is an issue that has a huge dose of conflict. So if 10 people were supposed to endorse you in a pool of 12, and two people are saying no, you can consider the minority report. You know, so it's normal that whatever happens in the course of politics, in the course of life, is contested. So it's a normal thing.
Did you induce the Kogi elders?
I'm not one to induce anyone.
You're saying that for the camera?
I'm saying that all through. I say it today, I'll say it tomorrow. I didn't have to induce anybody, and nobody was induced.
But you had somehow identified with the PDP before you went to the ADC. You couldn't secure the PDP ticket.
I went back to the PDP
interesting.
April 27th, yes. I couldn't secure the ticket of the PDP, of course, because there was some high-wired politics at that point. And some of the elders who felt insulted by the high-wired politics that happened at that point actually advised me, and in collaboration we moved to the ADC, but I was actually the one who led the charge. Physically, they were in there, but it was an agreement between all of us that I should move to the ADC.
So there was an unspoken agreement that
yes.
upon your exit from the PDP would work for your own senatorial ambition under the ADC.
Oh, was there?
I'm asking. I'm the one asking the questions here.
Okay, that was support, not an agreement. There was a commitment to support.
There was a commitment. Weren't you at that level encouraging anti-party activities?
Me? I was already of the ADC, so if someone on another party decides to support me, how would that impact me in a negative in any way? So no, I wasn't encouraging that party activity.
But you and I know that in politics, nothing goes for nothing. They wouldn't have decided to support you upon your exit from the PDP if they didn't stand to gain one or two things from that support.
They stand to gain something very major. And I'll tell you what it was they stood to gain. Profitable representation. And they knew I was actually the guy to bring that about. So it was about the people and not about any personal, benefits to them.
So what did you make available to them to work for you, the PDP, to work for the ADC candidate?
I didn't have to make anything available to them. The reason for their support for me was historical. So they knew I had all it took to bring about the kind of development they were looking at. So it was about historical belief in my capacity to deliver.
Did you induce the elders?
I did not induce the elders.
For these high-wired politics
I didn't induce the elders.
That you talk about that led to your exit from the PDP at that time to secure the ADC candidate?
I didn't induce I didn't induce anyone. No one was induced. But I got huge support from those who you can refer to as stakeholders in Project Kogi East.
So how come the ranks of the Kogi East elders were broken to such an extent that some people worked for you and some people did not work for you?
That's politics.
Perhaps the resources you made available didn't go round.
Resources.
Or perhaps the outgoing senator now, whose name was also put down for the primary, outspent you.
Well, people tend to believe politics about the big pockets. If it was about the deep pockets, I wouldn't have been in politics in the first place. So I wasn't in politics to buy people's conscience. I did not determine to outspend anybody. I only came with my proposals, and people who felt I had a well put together proposal to take them from point A to point B supported me.
Is that all you did to get the ticket, or did you spend money?
I bought the form. I paid a few millions to buy the form. Yes, it's statutory that you pay to buy the forms.
And you also spent some money while you were campaigning.
There is what you call logistics. The posters didn't come for free. The cars I used didn't come for free. So yeah, I knew it was, I had to spend money to put myself in people's consciousness. But to buy their conscience, no, I didn't do that.
You didn't spend any money? You didn't try to induce voters during the election?
I did not induce a single vote in the election.
So tell us, if you were so defrauded, why didn't Victor Adoji come second, a close second in that election? Why a distant third?
I did not compete with anybody in terms of our spending anyone. So perhaps if I had done what others did, the figures might have changed. I did not buy votes. I did not induce anyone. I just put my proposals out there and asked people to decide for themselves. And what happened in the elections in Kogi State is far from the normal.
Okay, we'll talk more about how you were, how and if you were defrauded or not, but that will be after the break. You're watching Fireworks. My guest today is the senatorial candidate of the ADC in the just concluded National Assembly elections. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. Today, my guest is the senatorial candidate of the ADC in the just concluded National Assembly elections of February 2019. In the last half hour, we have been looking at the politics of Kogi East Senatorial District, the yearnings of the people, and in the words of my guest, the recruitment of leaders in Kogi East. Thank you for your time, Dr. Adoji. Let's stay a bit on the point about you being defrauded in that last election. Now, why was your campaign trail such an object of attack during the election? Twice you were, your campaign trail was attacked. I recall in Efule, is it Efule now?
Ejule.
Ejule, and then in Anyigba. Am I correct? So, consistent attacks. Why so?
Well, for those of us who grew up in the villages, when there are seasons for cashew, for mango, oranges, and we'll go around to throw stones at those trees to pluck those oranges or mangoes, we don't throw the unripe ones. So when you have a potent campaign and you become a threat to extant forces, of course, you know you are subject to such attacks. So I would take it that they knew that we're a very, very formidable force, and they felt their occupancy was being threatened, and that was why we're subject to attacks. I would just, I think that should be the very cogent reason why all that happened.
So do you have an idea of who your saboteurs were, those who saw you as a formidable force?
Well, saboteurs would be, of course, in the opposition parties. Opposition party, I think, but I would not want to touch on who those were, because it's something I actually want to put behind me. Some of them actually come to me to confess and to ask for forgiveness. And I've forgiven and I've forgotten wholly. I wouldn't want to touch on that.
You don't perceive your enemies to also be within your own camp? Remember, you said that you were in the PDP before you moved to the ADC to secure the ticket.
Well, in politics, you always make provisions for fifth columnists. What you think doesn't matter, it's what is real. So if they were there, what the impact it made on me was to propel me to achieve even more. So it's okay.
But in your statement, you attributed the source of your attacks to the APC in Kogi State. But now you're rather diplomatic about who your perceived enemies were. I am diplomatic about mentioning those who are actually involved. I'm not diplomatic about the fact that the APC attacked me, but I'm diplomatic about mentioning the names of those who are involved. If they've begged for forgiveness, I've forgiven and I'll leave it at that. You're in politics to change the scheme of things, to make Kogi East an entrepreneurial part of Kogi State. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, I am in politics to make Kogi East an enterprise, contribution. I mean, enterprise, zone of the state. Yes. Your
foray into politics has been inspired by a bit of altruism. Your people are at the center of your desire, to change things in Kogi State. They're at the core. Yeah. So, if they are the core, why have you moved yet again to the PDP?
There are certain dialectics, in politics that plays major role in determining, the speed and the depth at which you move. The ADC, at the time I moved in, was, a relatively new party. And, since I was actually trying to appeal to people who are the grassroots, mostly illiterates, to vote for me, they knew, yes, they had to vote for Victor Adoji, but then it was a difficult thing to know which party was on. And the two major parties, of course, like we all know in the country today, are either the PDP, or the APC. So it was a difficult thing trying to get them to know the logos of the party. On the day of the elections, your name is not on the ballot box, it's the logo of the party. I've moved back to the PDP, not because I felt the ADC wasn't a sufficient platform to run the course of my ambition, but for some other secondary reason that I will reveal maybe now or later in the course of my...
Okay, so now we're getting to understand a bit more why you came a distant third, not necessarily because you were defrauded. Party logos also had to do with the problem, and perhaps you being not as popular and not as much of an established politician as others in Kogi State.
You know, when you begin to ask questions that have historical leanings, you begin to forget that politics is an existential and up-to-date, endeavor. Your suppositions are very, very incorrect, and I still stand with the fact that I was defrauded. I wasn't defeated because I knew the figures that I had as at 3:30 of the day of the elections, which were obtained at the dogs of the elections. I knew all that happened. It was not about the party not being popular. We did all we could to deepen the party. The party was very deepened, but we all knew what happened in the course of the elections of the February 23rd.
Interesting. So it's about, a shift, a paradigm shift in the scheme of things. If it's about a paradigm shift in the scheme of things, it will be convenient for you to move from parties to parties just so that you can actualize your ambition.
It's not about a paradigm
shift. So I ask again, where is the people at the grassroots who form the core, the center of your desire to see a change in Kogi East?
You see, let me put this a little hypothetical. I think that will drive that home for you. Have you ever cared to find out why a doctor will recommend you to see another doctor? A doctor recommends you to meet yet another doctor. It's about expertise. But one thing that is constant is the ailment. What the ailment is supposed to represent here are the people. Whatever platform we yield good living to the people, that I will abide to. It's not about the platform, it's about the people. That's why you can shift from platform to the other platform. Come to think of it, most of the politicians we've had today in Nigeria have either moved from one platform to the other, all because they had to prosecute their ambition that serves the people even better.
So what inspiration, in terms of consistency, in terms of integrity, do you provide for the people at the grassroots who you intend to inspire to greatness, to something lofty, to a lofty
Inspiration
ideals?
and integrity are a function of the person, not of the party in this case. My integrity and my inspiration are almost sacrosanct. The party platforms may change.
Okay, so let's look ahead now. That you have moved to the PDP, what are you, aspiring to in the coming elections? And, what do you want? What words do you have for the Kogi people who would have desired that you feel
it was a unilateral decision to move to contest the central election in the first place. And the moment I had my leg in the door, in the political door, decisions pertaining to me are no longer unilateral to me. So my movement back into the PDP was actually taken by my huge crowd of supporters. So I had to obey their yearnings. Now, back into the PDP is because we want to have a tight house, a very focused house, to see if we can cause the change that is necessary to happen in Kogi State.
So what agenda would you be setting for the Kogi East Senator who has been returned elected, and holistically now for the 9th Assembly, where you desired to, work in the next 4 years, but you couldn't achieve that ambition?
Well, I've been thinking through this, and I haven't been able to come around defining or answering that myself. Is Nigeria a failed state or a failing state? I have not been able to come to grips with that. There are certain basic, rudiments of our socialization or existence as a country or as a people that we'll need to determine. Number one, the issue of security is security of lives and property is one major area that must be tackled. Number two, we talk about the employment rate that is utterly and thoroughly unacceptable. Number three, we talk about our education, a level of education that is just southwards. And then number four, we talk about the issue of restructuring, what it means to my people in Kogi East, what it means to my people in Kogi State, and how the total conversation at the center will begin to impact my state and my people. So as for setting agenda for the current senator, I have a blueprint I was going to run. If I had won elections, I'm sure he has his own blueprint. So if he's willing to open up his doors, of course, for the sake of our people, we're willing to cooperate to make sure our people achieve as a group.
Now, some of the points that you've touched on, they're quite interesting. But if we're to look at the leadership of the National Assembly vis-a-vis the interests of the party at hand ahead of the elections of into key offices, you know, the presiding offices of the National Assembly, there are reports that your party has been speaking in hush-hush tones. What kind of National Assembly do you want to see this time?
Number one, I'm a party man and I'm subject to party decisions. So whatever the party thinks is right is what I will subscribe to. Secondly, no party or no concern or no government should tinker with the independence, you know, of the parliament. Because one thing we must come to realize, even during the military regimes, the judiciary existed alongside the executive. The only thing that actually defines our democracy is the parliament. So if the independence of the parliament is tinkered or tampered with, then we can as well say we don't have a democracy. Now, as for the issue of the ruling party preferring someone to another person, I will allow them to have their way. Let them choose the best that they think is okay for them.
What about the Green Chamber? Well,
what applies to the Red Chamber, in my own case, we call it apply to the Green Chamber. So whatever I think is right, I think.
So if this, you know, becomes reality, the party's will becomes reality in a few weeks from now, are we going to be seeing a Ninth Assembly with the political will to actualize the agenda that you have set for the National Assembly, the Ninth National Assembly?
You see, I wouldn't want to encourage doubts, and I also will not be overly optimistic. Let's go the way Providence dictates, but with the assurance of a sleepwalker.
That will be your last word.
That will be for now.
Okay. We thank you very much for your time on Fireworks.
Thank you.
Dr. Victor Adoji, and we wish you all the best in your future aspirations.
Thank you.
And that's our offering on Fireworks today. Of course, it's been interesting, and we hope that that void left in the politics of Kogi State, well, perceived, will be filled in the coming months ahead of the governorship election. And of course, with the participation of the returned lawmakers at the National Assembly. And so we urge you to join us again, same time next week when we bring you another incisive edition of the program. I am Bukola Samuel-Wemimo. Bye for now.